This church is synonymous with the history of Greensboro. The church was started in 1824 and built a congregation in the sanctuary in 1928. There were many that built this sanctuary back in 1928 and ensured it to be here for future generations, which was the decision way back in the 20s. And when the committee went about deciding what to do with it, they wanted to keep as much as possible all of the historical features within the building.
Yeah, this project was incredibly complicated, probably the most complicated project I've ever worked on. We've had historical renovation to where in the sanctuary we just tried to place it back the way it looked in the beginning. We totally removed all the plumbing, mechanical, and electrical systems throughout the building.
We are at the First Presbyterian Church of Greensboro. We are in the sanctuary. We're 62 feet up in the air and still have another 18 to 20 feet to get to the ceiling. You know, this represents what was done back in 1928, 1929. The woodwork that you're looking at now is a representation of a timber beam construction. It's actually a steel structure that has a pine boards covering it to give it the timber beam look. If you look at the painting and the designs on the wood, all this was done in 1928, 1929. All of that is a hand stenciling and has never been touched up since 1929. Part of what we're doing is for this restoration is to be able to clean all of this and do any type of restoration that we need to do with the painting and with the woodwork. We're now in the area here on the scaffold where we did our experimental cleaning. If you look to my left right here, you can see where we have a line that represents, to my left is what's been cleaned, to the right is has not been cleaned. It took 6 cleanings to get to this point of what you see right here. This apostle that you see right here was cleaned. If you look behind me, you can see where we've started some of the restoration work on the existing plaster. This whole area behind me had extensive water damage and had a lot of cracking and peeling of the plaster. So this area here has been repaired and is now ready for painting.
Not only did you have 2 schools running to the point where if you were going to solder, you know, out in the courtyard, we had to blank the windows so kids just didn't look out and see the, you know, the welding arc. Down to the school has got to have fire drills once a month, and you know that's going to disrupt things, and funerals had to go on. We had columbariums right out where the work was going on, where we had services. I had to alert the construction company and all the subs to stop work at 2 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon. Fortunately, Blum was really good at knowing that they were in an ongoing, you know, activities, and that they could, you know, work around that and work with us on that. So that took a lot of coordinating and communicating.
If you look at my left, you'll see a black chain that is connected to the hands of the apostle. That chain is original to the construction from 1928, 1929. That chain is what holds up one of the 12 chandeliers that we've now got sent off and are being restored. Each one of those chains are in excess of 600 pounds apiece. The chandeliers themselves that hang off of them are about 450 pounds apiece.
The lighting that they had in here, the old chandeliers, we would all look at them, and they had what looked like George Jetson afterburners on the sides of them. That were lights that went up and down, and they looked out of character with the design of the original building. And the lighting designers came up with a new way to do it that it looks like it's always been there.
We're now standing at the south end of the chancel, 80 feet up in the air, looking at the rose window at the chancel end. You can see all this precast concrete surrounds that form the rose window and the stained glass. Behind me, you can see some of this hand-painted wall has got plaster and water damage from over the years. So we're working with a specialty firm right now that's going to help repaint the motif, and we're working with a plaster firm that's going to help repair all the plaster. So We plan to take this south end of the building and the chancel wall and bring it back to its original late 20s construction. One of the things we're going to be doing throughout this renovation is we're going to be taking all the buildup and soot that's accumulated on the stained glass and trying to clean it so that we can get rid of this. One of the other things we'll be doing throughout this renovation is patching a lot of the plaster walls where we're having to install new electrical and mechanical systems. So this sculpted plaster that was intentionally done as a finish back in the late 20s, we'll be reproducing that on the new plaster walls. As we're panning over to the west end of the chancel, the east and west sides of the chancel are flanked with organ chamber piping, as well as the north end. We had to build organ protection to protect the pipes that were going to remain during the construction process. The organ protection, temporary protection, was constructed out of wood stud walls, chicken wire, and plastic that have remained in place throughout construction to protect the existing organ piping from dust and other potential falling debris.
The 1928 construction, wasn't green by today's standards at all. It certainly wasn't energy efficient. So we go into design and we say, we're not going to make this LEED qualified, but we can do a lot of things that'll make it greener.
We had our engineer Sutton Kennelly do their design of the system, and it's got several energy efficient boilers and water heaters and chillers, and it's done in a way that will probably save the church a ton of money in the future just from the energy efficiency.
Right now we are standing in the main boiler room for the complex that we're working on. If you look around, you'll see all the equipment that's covered with plastic. This is all the new equipment to support all the new heating, air conditioning, electrical, and plumbing systems that are being added to the building. Interesting fact about where we're at right now, we are 24 to 30 inches below the water table at this point.
To me, my favorite challenge on the project was when I was taking a day off and I was walking my dog and my cell phone rang, and it was Mark Gill, and he called and he goes, they drilled a few holes in the basement in the boiler room just to see how thick the slab was, and now we've got water bubbling up through the room. He goes, what do we do? And I'm like, panicking, like, I don't know what to do. Quit drilling holes in the floor. So we had to call in the engineers, and they came up with a way to plug the holes, and we came up with a creative way to make the mechanical room, the boiler room, work without having to tear out the floor slab. But that was one of the more challenging parts of the project.
If you look to my left here, you see these two pieces of equipment that's underneath the plastic. That is two new boilers. Each one of them are a 3 million BTU capacity. They are taking the space of what one of the original boilers was in before. We had to demo the two original boilers. Each one of them were 6 million BTU capacity, and they took up the size of two of these openings. The only way that we had to get these out was to be able to cut them up in pieces that were manageable, that we could get up out of the hole onto Green Street.
Moving out the old boiler was interesting. It had to be taken apart in pieces. We had to excavate just to get down to it. And so we turned that into an event. We literally had a crane in, and we had the congregation having a hot dog lunch on the lawn across the street, watching it go on, sign a big card, goodbye, Big John is what we called the boiler. So, that was, again, another just opportunity for the congregation to get tied into what was going on. That boiler had served us for 80 years, probably state of the art in 1928, but well past, it's certainly not energy efficient, and well past its usefulness by the time we get it out of there and get a new system in.
And in order to provide an adequate HVAC system for this large sanctuary, we had to provide a lot of mechanical system equipment to provide air. One of the problems we had was trying to get the air to go back to the unit, which was in the boiler room. So in order to do that and do it in a manner that made our acoustical designer happy, we had to create a gypsum wallboard plenum in the basement that was basically a heavy-duty ceiling, so all the air could get pulled back into the unit. And then, since it was such a big space in the basement, we decided that it would be best to turn it into offices. So we have several offices down there and try to make them nice so they didn't feel like they were in the basement. So they have windows, and it actually surprised me. It turned out to be some nice spaces down there.
The reason the duct is the size that it is, it's a low velocity duct. And what that does is keeps us from having any type of real loud air conditioning or mechanical noise up in the sanctuary.
So as you can see behind me, we are doing a minor demo to accommodate our new supply ducts that will be coming up into the sanctuary. To accommodate the new duct, we'll be needing to demolish the brick all the way to first floor main. The new grills for the supply will be located above the window area. They will be made out of FRP, which is fiberglass reinforced plastic.
So we're here in the Myers Loyalty Room. This is one of the rooms in the renovation that people really have long-term memories of it. And one of the objectives of the campaign and the project was to maintain the beautiful historic look to this room and the Virginia Goma room next to it.
If you look to my left, you'll see this plaster crown. It's original to the building. It's the only place in the church or in the complex that we actually have a plaster crown. This is one of the areas during pre-construction that the church was very concerned that we would not be able to save this plaster crown, and we was able to assure them that throughout this project and through this process that we would be able to preserve and protect this plaster crown.
I think the biggest concern was looking at the cornice work in this room that was plaster, and the objective of avoiding damaging any of it with all the work that went on. So to see the room being gutted and the ceilings being removed and keeping those little edges around there to protect them, and to be able to go through the entire project, every time I came in I'd always look up and say, okay, no damage, I think we're okay, and to get to the end of the project and see them as beautiful as they were probably the day they were built, and just a beautiful contrast with the paint colors to kind of bring out those features. So that was one of the things I always kept an eye on during the project. Don't mess up those things we didn't want to touch.
We are standing in first floor Smith, which was the original educational building. Behind me you'll see this new red steel, the columns and the beams. This area used to be a load-bearing wood construction. We are opening this area up because this will become the new reading room, and it's also the opening for the new visitor center. To my left, where the windows are, this area here will be taken out, and we've got a new addition that goes on out into the courtyard. Directly behind me, if you look down, you can see what was the existing tunnel system. We were able to abate the original piping that was in that tunnel system, and now we're utilizing that for all of our new piping for the new mechanical and new electrical. We are standing on the east side of the job site on the Elm Street side. This is our entrance into what is our playground area, or what was the playground area, and the new courtyard. Back behind me, you can see that we have these wishbone arches. The width that we have between these arches is about 5'2". So all the equipment that we get in and out of the courtyard, all the materials that we get in and out of the courtyard have to go between these two wishbone arches. Prior to the work that you're seeing now, we had new utilities coming in off of Elm Street. We've got a new fire line that comes in that's going to take care of the new sprinkler system. We've also got the new sanitary waste that comes out and ties back into Elm Street. So all this area prior to this had been dug up for new utilities, and all the dirt retamped so that we could bring trucks in and out to do the work that we need to do into the courtyard.
We hope that the investment that this congregation has made here in this community is a sign and a symbol of First Pres's commitment to its membership here in the community. And we hope that preserving these buildings helps preserve that relationship here with the city for many years and decades to come.